Hello, and welcome to...
How to Society.
Today we're going to be talking about education.
Which not many of them here have. I'm totally kidding.
First of all, education doesn't mean going to school.
That's right.
Because I know plenty of people who went to up to 4th grade and they're smarter than people who are in college.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody who went to 4th grade and is smart, but I know what you're saying.
My blacksmithing mentor, I think only went up to 5th grade and then he dropped out. And what he did for a living was he made machines to make things. So batteries, for instance, he made that machine.
Yep.
He could literally look at a blueprint and tell you how it would fail, why it would fail, and how you could make it so it failed cheaper. Because the reality about pretty much everything, you want the weakest link to be cheap to repair.
Yep.
So you engineer the break.
Yep.
But yeah, so education isn't a matter of going to school or having a degree or anything. It's about literally learning.
I think that's actually a really good point because with the amount of knowledge available to the average person, I mean, being uneducated at this point is just...
It's kind of a cop-out. You can't even...
You have the entire sum of human knowledge in your hands.
In the palm of your hand. Literally.
I mean, as long as you have internet.
Right.
Which clearly they aren't educated because they're burning on 5G power, so...
So
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah.
Hey man, they're gonna get into your brains and make you gay.
Shit. Yeah, no.
Turn the freaking frogs game.
The what?
Freaking frogs game?
Oh, are they?
That's an Alex Jones quote.
Is it?
Yes.
I was never heard of it. But so no matter how it comes in what shape, way, or form, it's a thing that needs to happen.
Well,
now, what's stopping people from doing it?
Well, I would say at the same time that all of human knowledge is in the palm of your hand, all of human stupidity is also in the palm of your hand.
That's
so
true.
you can get into those places where it is people like Alex Jones who say, listen, we're being ruled by lizard people, and we went back in time and shot Abraham Lincoln. Our current government did this. And I know people who believe all of these things.
Okay.
And so it is just as easy to get on the internet and educate yourself in things that aren't real as it is to educate yourself on things that are.
So I've never had that happen to me, so I can't even put myself in those shoes. But how do you not know that it's not real?
So it comes down to where you source your information from, I feel like. And not many people understand how to evaluate a source's value.
I suppose.
Which is weird. So in school, they taught us cite your sources, check your sources with other sources to
Don't
figure
use
this out.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, and
Which don't get me fucking started on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Because I went through that in school and college. I had either teachers that were okay with it and teachers that were so against it. They made it their personal life mission to stop you from using it. It's why?
Why? And the thing is, it's you use Wikipedia to get the overall view of it, and then you can know where to go.
It gets better. You can literally bypass Wikipedia and go to the sources because
yes,
they list them.
exactly.
And so that's what I used to do with those teachers. It's I would go to Wikipedia and then go to the source material and then use that as my reward.
And with Wikipedia, so at work several years ago, we had a guy who we wanted to convince a girl something was real. We told her, we said Christopher Columbus came over to the United States on a train in 1962.
Oh my god.
And he went and changed the Wikipedia for Christopher Columbus to say he came here on a train in 1962 high on cocaine. It stayed there for 5 minutes before it got changed back. And we had enough time to show her. And she was like, oh my god, I never knew that.
I did that as well because I had heard that stupid argument. Anybody can edit Wikipedia. So I invented a word and made a whole backstory for it, made a whole article, everything proper. It was up there for about 5-10 minutes, and then it literally got deleted, removed, and everything. So
you do have that small window of like
yeah,
editing before they go back.
Not to mention topics that are very controversial get locked, and the only way they can be edited is if you have. So if you make an account with Wikipedia for editing purposes, there's levels, and so you need to have a certain level of seniority and like proven record before you're allowed to edit those controversial topics.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, that's why whenever the little thing for Wikipedia is all like, hey, give us money, I'm like, no, but I
actually give Wikipedia money.
I would if
that is the only thing I have ever given money to, Wikipedia.
It's definitely a great resource.
Do you know it's one dude?
Really?
They have one employee, and that's the IT guy that runs the servers. The owner, the guy who started Wikipedia, has never made any money from it or collected any money from it. Every single bit of money goes towards keeping the servers running for it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
See?
Good people.
Yeah, I think going back to like the whole how can people, the whole misinformation, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to people believing that look at flat earthers, for example. We've known for however many years that the earth is round. We've seen it from space. We can, even people in ancient time could measure it and be like, it's round.
You can actually do it with 2 sticks.
Yeah. And so
you can prove it with 2 fucking sticks.
I think people go and you type in your Google search, and they just find stuff that makes sense to them and resonates with them. They don't care if it's factual or not, because to them that is factual. And then they can spread it, and it just spreads like a fucking virus. And they can get everyone else involved into it too.
Right, so if you grew up in a culture or a school that, you know, things weren't, you know, really all that factual to begin with, and like, so then you're all like, well, I know that the whole world is lying to me, and then you find all of this evidence online that supports that.
See, but I would disagree with that, because I went to a private Catholic academy, right? So I was lied to, my entire life.
Right.
And when I discovered that I was lied, it kind of like what you went through with weed. It's like, you know, if they've lied about this,
what else have they lied about?
So I went through that same idea, but instead of being like, well, now I'm gonna question it, so I literally question everything. I don't take anything at face value. I always like actually read and do my own research in order to corroborate. You know, if it's true, you should be able to prove it's true. You can't just take one guy's word for it.
And so what happened to me was somebody on Facebook was like, why isn't there any outrage? Because there was a whistleblower that leaked forced hysterectomies in the detention centers for ICE. And I said, unfortunately, they were like, why isn't there more outrage? And I said, because unfortunately, this isn't the first time it's happened in U.S. history. From 1909 to 1963, we did that to minorities, natives, you know, people.
So what is a hysterectomy?
That's when you take the uterus.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, and somebody was like, they posted a meme where it was like, Fry from Futurama. It's like, shut up and cite your sources. And I was like, you can fucking Google it. Like, I know it's not widely taught. So I posted, you know, a PBS article that went really in depth on it. And they're like, thank you. I don't know, some people just...
It's like, why don't you Google it?
Yeah, which you should.
Let me Google that for you.
Go on Dion's point, like, don't take things at face value, but I've given you the tools to do your search around. You can educate yourself now. I don't need to do it for you.
So how I first learned about all of this stuff that actually happened with the hysterectomies and stuff like that happened to Native Americans was a show called Longmire. And it's so funny. And then I was like, wait, is any of this true? And I Googled it, and I was like, how wasn't I taught any of this? This is fucking insane.
Yeah, we've had such a shady history that nobody... Because it just goes back to education. Obviously, you don't want to teach the shit parts of how you're... of the timeline of events in your country, right?
Right.
So there was a period in time in one southern state where they literally went and kidnapped kids and put them up for adoption. And these were kids that came from, like, poverty-stricken homes. They were still technically being taken care of. But this lady took it upon herself, started working with the government to kidnap these kids and put them into rich homes, and there was actually NPR did an interview with a girl who was kidnapped from her home, and she's like, it sucks. I don't know who my family is, but to back to the whole education thing, is like, yeah, people don't know that, and I think it's a combination of people don't want to learn about that because
it's
That's what I was
embarrassing.
about to
So
say.
they're gonna. So most of history has been, cleaned of all the atrocities.
Sweep it under the rug.
Yep.
I don't
And
like looking at it.
the other side is that history is written by the winners.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's a huge thing.
well, not for the Civil War.
What?
So the South, when they lost, there was the Daughters of the Confederacy.
Oh yeah.
They rewrote the books for their schools to show that slave owners were good people, and they treated their slaves to barbecues and treated them with
God.
respect and dignity. But we clearly know that that wasn't the case. But in the South, they wanted to keep that part of their history and culture alive, and like, we're not bad guys, we're good people.
We just had different perspective. It's like, no, when you're enslaving another group of people, that's not good behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, look what's I mean, not that this is good by any means, but like, look what does anyone even know about Hitler's history? No, like, I know I make tons of jokes, but does anyone really know about his background?
I know a little bit.
Right. Like
So,
World
like-
War One, got in prison, wrote Mein Kampf.
So he moved from Austria to Germany, and then he petitioned the government to let him enlist in their army to fight during World War One. Then after he sustained a couple...
Sorry to interrupt you. I just have to say, the biggest lie and the best lie that the Germans ever told, or sorry, not the Germans, that the Austrians ever told was making people believe that Hitler was German.
Yeah.
Because he was Austrian.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So he was injured, he was in the hospital, and during
Austrians
that...
didn't want to own them.
Yeah. During that, he was like, he had to stay in the hospital for like a month. During that month-long stay, they lost World War One, and then him and everyone else were like, it was because of the unpatriotic traitors that didn't fight hard enough for us to win. But nobody knows that. Nobody knows that he was somewhat decorated in the army. Like, he literally, that's how he rose to power, was he could convince other military people to join him.
I mean, I guess I my only question about that is, it's at that, I was even taught that in the Christian school. So how is it you have to not be paying attention at a certain point not to learn certain things?
Well, that is a huge thing. So another issue with the way our education system works is, and I think we talked about this before, about how it was designed for people who are going to work in a factory.
Yep.
And so it isn't taught for the right level of your mind, if that makes any sense. So they're basically trying to cram you with all the basics so they can get you out the door. It's a factory, literally.
It's literally what's training you to do.
They literally they train you how to memorize. That's it.
Yep.
And so
follow directions.
when I was in school,
That's a big one. Following directions.
When I was in school, I remember that the only reason I got decent grades is because I have the ability to hear something and understand.
Yep.
Like, I'm very good with language, so I can process the information. So I never really did any homework. I never studied for anything. I just kind of got through it with, never amazing grades, but decent enough. But I didn't give a fuck about anything I was studying.
Right.
Once in a while there was something that it aligned with my interest, and then I got good grades because I enjoyed it. But the bulk of it went in one ear, came out the other. So that's the problem with education is, they taught you all this in school, but you didn't care at the moment. You had more important things. So when they taught us the history of, for instance, Puerto Rico, like, they taught us how everything used to work when it was under Spanish rule, how everything happened, how the areas were segregated, like how everything about it. And this was like in 3rd, 4th grade. Like, why are you teaching a 3rd grader about politics and about like really hardcore, difficult concepts? And of course nobody knew and understood.
I don't know. I would have loved that in being in 3rd grade, learning about that, because I always got annoyed with how dumb our history seemed in 2nd, 3rd grade. It's like, I'm sorry, was this made for a kindergartner? But it's like, no, it was made for children, and I don't know.
Ours was too advanced, honestly.
Gotcha.
It was way too much information. I can remember a few things, but mostly because I've revisited it.
Right.
But it was way above the level of a fourth grader. And
Right.
it's like, it makes no sense to a fourth grader. You don't have the frame of mind to make a connection
Right.
with that.
Yep.
The other thing that I think education does wrong is really school education is only for like the intellects. So for example, I loved school. I loved going to class. I loved learning. I had so much fun, to be honest. And I had all of these classmates who were like, oh, you're so lucky that you're smart. I'm really dumb. The only thing I can do is write. And I'm like, I think that's amazing because I suck at writing. I love science and math and, all of those things. But when it comes to writing, I'm horrible at it. And I work so hard to let other people know that I'm smart by your standards because this happens to, I'm in physics class.
Yes.
And I like science. So of course you think I'm smart. Put me in a language class and I'm lost. And
Start giving me to separate verbs.
right, and
that,
it makes me feel bad for those who get like B's and C's and they're like, I'm just barely struggling by. It's like, that's not fair because we're not honing their skills too because
it's
they
a system
are good at
that
something.
tries to put everybody into
in
the same box.
Yes.
So, and that's the thing. That's why I think that the public education system has severely failed everyone. Is like in school, I was considered an idiot.
Wow.
I mean, even outside of school. But as an adult, I'm so much smarter than what I was
Right.
in school. And so, like to your point, the teachers are teaching one way because their curriculum is set. They need to go. They have to get all these hours in of X, Y, D. That's why they have syllabus.
It's about tests.
Yep.
Half the time, their entire goal is to get a certain amount of people to pass.
Yeah, and that's because like the standardized tests, when they do that, or the state test or whatever,
Yep.
they get. That's how the state decides how much
gets
money
the
to
funding.
give. Yes, who gives the
Schools,
funding.
yeah.
And how
So-
stupid is that? If your kids are stupid, you get less money.
I know, it should be the other way around.
Which I believe several districts through several states have been like, we can't do this because look at this school, which is in classified as a poor neighborhood, and they're not getting the correct funding. I think if those schools that are doing poor, it's not
Should
because-
get more
Yeah,
help,
they need
more
to get
money,
more
more
help.
everything.
Think about all the fundraisers that schools do, where if you already live in a, even a semi-wealthy community, that school is going to get money from those parents. The people in the poor schools, it's like, yeah, well, sorry, too bad. Guess you can't. I can't pay for that.
The thing that showed that kind of idea the best was Parks and Rec. I don't know if you've ever watched
I have,
it,
I love
but
it.
the whole thing between Pawnee and what's the name?
Oh
Yeah, I know.
Eagleton.
Eagle, yes.
So
Eagleton.
how they're rich, so everything is better, but
Yeah.
it's not better. It's just they have the money to
Yes.
spend on
Yes.
everything.
Right.
When crap actually hits the fan, they're like, we have no money because
I
we spent
know.
our fountain.
Yeah, we gave everybody gift bags
Yeah.
of $3,000 gift bags underneath your chairs.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
But the teachers just don't teach. They're only teaching in through tunnel vision, and they're
Yes.
like I only had one teacher throughout the 12 years of school that actually took the time to realize that because I was terrible at math, learning disability math. He was like, okay, I recognize this. I'm gonna teach in a way that you learn, and that was the only time. That was freshman year that I ever passed math class. Was because that teacher took the time to stop his class and was like, okay, here's how we're gonna teach it. Cody, I understand that you don't understand this yourself. We're gonna try it this way, and that's how I passed. But teachers are like, you need to take better notes. You need to pay attention to your class. Like, no, bitch, I've been paying attention. You're just not teaching the way I learned.
Well, and that's, so 2 points. One thing, that's something Mary brings up all the time, is so she went from being homeschooled, where they didn't really get taught anything, to going into, I think it was 7th grade, and they started, algebra half or whatever it is, and she's like, I don't know how to do long division or long multiplication. The teacher said, you should have learned that already. That's not my fault. And didn't teach her at all. Just said, you need to learn it now, get over it. And it's like, who is that helping?
That makes me so angry.
Right? And My other point would be, and that's why the school system needs more teachers, because then you can have that more one-on-one experience. And can you imagine every day dealing with teenagers. All the like, if you're a high school teacher, I would want
Dealing
to
with
slap them
adults
around.
is bad enough.
Right.
I just can't
Sorry,
even imagine.
So in my school, I started in that private school in 7th grade, and between 7th grade and 9th grade, our math teacher actually had gone to school to study to be a history teacher.
Oh.
Yep.
So literally all she did was stand up there and literally read out of a book or write on a board literally from the book, word for word,
And
and expect us to somehow get the part in
Yes.
between.
And my favorite part was, did you ever get there and then the teacher, like, they have the teacher's book, they write out the problem, and then they kind of look at it and they're like, how did we get that answer?
Yeah. Oh no, that happened a lot.
Yeah.
And people would ask questions, and she would either answer with, "Yeah, it's in the book,"
Yes.
or just some incomprehensible explanation that you were done, and you're just like, "Okay, I understand," just to get her to stop talking.
Yep. We
So,
had teachers like that.
but
too.
then from 10th grade to 12th grade, the teacher we had loved math. Like in that part of the school, there were clubs. He actually had a math club that was all about graphic calculators.
Yes.
And so this guy loved math.
Right.
And so they paid him so little that what he did was he actually did tutoring after school, but you had to pay. But the dude actually knew what he was talking about. So I actually had the ability that my parents had enough money to get me in that. And that helped me so much. Because he would literally give me, we only took like 3 classes a day, but each class was like 2 hours long, something like that. I don't remember. But anyway, so I took like 2 hours of math in school. And then I got out of school and went to his house and got like 2 more hours of the same crap again.
Yep.
In order to try and catch up. Because it was so bad.
Yeah.
Well, and you make a point. You had the luxury of being able to afford the tutor.
Yup.
Like, talk about a barrier to, I mean...
Yeah. Well,
Like-
but there's no excuse because I was going to a private school
Right,
where they
well,
were
I'm
using
just
a
saying.
history teacher.
Right.
They were literally fucking us over, and we were paying a lot of money
See,
for that shit.
I was poor, so I
You are
couldn't.
still poor.
I'm still poor, but I couldn't when we finally figured out that I couldn't understand.
Yeah, you're not drinking out of a gold cup.
I know that I couldn't comprehend math. There was no my mom was like, let's go pay for a tutor. The school was just like, here's one of your classmates is gonna tutor you, and it was somebody that I had dated previously. So one, I was already embarrassed because I needed to I had to take an hour out of my my schedule.
So
sit in
now
a
you had
small
to be
room.
in the room with this guy who
So I
you
was-
dated.
Oh! I see what you did there!
Oh, shit, no, it was a girl.
I mean, it would be fine if it was a guy.
Yeah, no, very true, very true.
Would it?
But so I had to take an hour out of my class schedule to leave my class and go with a tutor who was in the same grade as me, just in a higher level math class. So there was 2 levels of embarrassment, and I still couldn't understand it.
Oh, that's awful. That's
So
Well, yeah, because I'm sure she was teaching you the same way that the teacher taught.
Yeah.
So it's literally the same thing.
And I mean, there was times when I went to the private school that, you would listen to the teacher talk to a student, and the student's like, I don't get it. And the teacher says the exact same thing over again, or they'll slow it down. It's like, that's
I
not
know.
helping.
I'm
Yeah,
not-
speaking slowly isn't gonna fix
And
it.
so then I would talk to the kid. I'd be like, try and think of it. I would be like, all right, so don't get it this way. Let's think of it a different way. So let's say they were having problems with times tables and they couldn't remember their 5 times whatever. I was like, you just gotta remember, it's only going up by 5 increments. It's either gonna end in a 5 or a 0. You just have to add that first number. And they're like, that makes sense.
So
Yeah, you're right.
what you just said is how I was able to memorize the 5 table.
Yes,
because it's
okay.
either going to end on 0 or a
Yes.
5. So
And
I just
that-
got to remember a little bit,
and
not
that's
a lot.
how I remembered it too.
And because of that, I cannot ever do the 3s.
Yes.
The
'cause
3s
there's
are
no good
impossible.
trick.
No,
Yeah,
there
there's
is
good trick for 'em.
no
3,
rhyme or
6,
logic
9,
to it.
8,
It's just all over the fucking place.
6, 9, 12, 15 good friends.
Yeah, but they're not all even or odd. They're everywhere. And so it really fucks with my head.
You know what was good for me? Football, because it helped me with the sevens. Because then I could think, all right, 1 touchdown is 7, so 2 touchdowns is 14, 3 touchdowns is 21.
Yeah, but I don't know 7 either because it's too high a number. Like, you know, it gets really high really quick. So it's like, fuck
the
that.
only thing I remember that I can easily do from multiplication is 6, 6, 36. 6, 8, 48. That's the only 2 tricks I know.
My favorite one, my favorite table is 1.
Mine is 0.
Actually, that one would be
I was
easier.
gonna say, all of these, special people, I enjoyed math a lot. I took AP Calculus for fun rather than senior release.
That's disgusting.
I heard that women who do math are witches.
Oh!
I am okay with
And
that.
Burn the witch.
When do I
she
get my
is a
Hogwarts
healer, technically.
Burn the witch.
I bet you that.
I
I bet you that so many nurses are witches because they're probably doing little satanic
Careful,
things in
you
the back.
realize that could spread on the internet, and then people are
sorry.
gonna think
That's
it's real.
that's
Yeah.
not real.
We're gonna
That's
have another wave of
fake.
Salem witch trials.
fake news. That's all I do.
No, I will. But one of the other things too, that part of the reason I think education can be so hard for a country in general is convincing people to be educators. Being a teacher is like one of the most thankless jobs anyone can ever have.
Underpaid, overworked.
Especially like, at least in college, I feel like I get a little bit more respect.
But even then.
Right, but even like high school down, I mean, it's just, whoo. And then you've got kids not doing stuff in school, and then teachers trying to discipline, and then parents coming in and it's like, why is my kid failing? Why aren't you doing your job? Like, I can't tell you how many good teachers I had in high school that I listened to I heard what parents were saying to them, and I'm like, you don't understand, that child is in my class and he is a horrible human being. Nobody can learn
and
when he's
even,
there.
Like, teaching an after-school program, it was just like you knew which kids were like, and then their parents would just dismiss it, and I'm just like, no, like your kid like pelted another kid on purpose because they were mad in the face with a dodgeball. Now I'm no longer able to play dodgeball because your kid did something wrong and you're complaining about it, that it's my fault that I let the kids play dodgeball. I played dodgeball as a kid. I came out relatively okay. Like, we played like terrible games in gym class, and like we all understood, like, okay, you don't like go and intentionally hurt somebody. That's bad. These kids don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that surprised me so much is now that, like, parents come in and, like, demand things of the teacher.
Yes.
Like, my son got a bad grade, you better this is all your... That's so unheard of from the mentality when I went to school. Like, it was the other way around. Like, if I did bad, I got beat, not the teacher.
Yeah.
Like,
See, and that's what happened to me too. But all of my classmates in public school, I mean, their parents went to bat for them.
Why?
Even when they were absolutely in the
Because
wrong.
their child.
Well, and so, like,
Well, if their child's gonna fail school, they can't advance, and then what about blah, 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 blah,
Maybe
blah.
you should look for other alternative
So
options.
like, here,
janitors are very necessary.
It's true. There's a lot of
so
jobs out
like
there.
here, at least in the Reedsburg School District, it is almost. I have never heard of anyone being held back.
Yeah.
So
I've heard
like,
that, yeah.
my nephew the kid's an idiot. Didn't do very good in school, and my sister moved to Portage, so he went to Portage School, like, learned Jack, and then came back, and the Reedsburg School was like, we don't want him in this grade. And my sister was like, oh, okay, and then they're like, she threw some sort of fit, and they're like, oh, I guess, like, we can take him, but even then, like you said, like, when I did something bad, or, like, I didn't learn something, my parents were never like, oh, it's your fault. They were like, okay, what can we do to get him on the same level as everyone else? And it was like a nice, polite, calm, like, okay, I understand that my kid may be this, that, or the other. What can we do to get him? Is there a way that we could change up the teaching style, and like you can do a one-on-one, and like there was no animosity, there was no angriness, there was just like let's
can we
figure
do to
this
help
out.
him
And yeah, like the kid's just like, oh, my kid would never do that. No, your kid would. You just choose to ignore it because, like, especially
Easier.
like younger parents who have to work 2 jobs and they're never home to like. Those kids are with their grandparents, and you know, though they're perfect angels for the grandparents, but you know, I think it's a case of the parents don't actually know who their kids are
It's
because
possible.
they can't be there all the time.
Well,
I know my kids are shits, and I will always be like, if I can hear the teacher being a jackass to my kids, like I know that now you're in the wrong, and I'm gonna be a dick to you. But I also know that my kids are jackasses too, so
right.
I have to get more knowledge before like I immediately jump in.
But I mean, at the same time, think about how even, it's like, so we're talking about all this, and yet some of this comes back to a home situation where we used to have the bigger family units taking, like, so you'd have the grandparents at home taking care of the children, the people who were able-bodied were out working, making money for the entire household. Now you have the nuclear family where it's just you, your spouse, and your children. So you don't have as many people to help watch those children.
The other thing to that is also families, even if they weren't that extended, even if it was just the mother, father, and the kids, they were so big and the age range was so staggered that some of the older kids would help raising the younger kids.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
And there's just no good.
Yeah. Well, and I know a big issue. So with the Reedsburg School District, there was 5 elementary schools. They closed 2 of them down because they couldn't afford to pay all the teachers, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
So now there's 3.
Well, I know South School was really outdated too.
And it was because I think it started off as a hospital, then it was like a fire department, something like that.
All I know is that when you look at South School, you think insane asylum.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's
1920s.
It is rated as like a nuclear fallout shelter.
Yes.
My academy where I went to school used to be a nunnery.
That's where they raised nuns.
Yeah,
But-
they're hatched.
But now we have an issue going back to them closing schools, which I know a lot of districts around the country have done. Is you have larger class sizes.
Yes. And less teachers.
And and so like, you know, you're underpaying the teachers like we've established. Everyone knows that. That's why they're doing strikes.
Yep.
You're underpaying the teachers. The teachers are expected to come up with their own supplies for the students. Students are expected to buy enough supplies to share. And now you don't. When I was in school, legit, the class size was like 10 to 15 kids. It's upwards of 20, 25.
So in Texas, it was 30. 30 to 32.
Ours was like 15.
Here's my question. What's the teachers union doing? Isn't that the entire reason there's a teachers
The
union
unions
across the
Hold
country?
on. Yeah, go ahead.
I think when Walker was governor, he disbanded the union. He made it so they had no bargaining power. So there was a lot of teachers, especially in my school. They're like, if I'm not going to be here, they're probably going to fire me for going on strike for this, or for going and protesting.
Yep.
I'm not here. You guys don't have to be here either.
Yeah, but is it any better in California where the teachers union are strong?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
can't.
haven't done the research.
Now, I do know a little bit about unions. They usually don't work.
Right.
There's some benefits like everything, but it's a huge racket
But
for the most part.
and that's the thing. When unions were started, we were talking from stopping child labor to nowadays where it's like, where's my free bagel? You know, there's a large difference between the disparity that happened then.
No, you think he's joking? That is the thing.
No, I know.
Yeah, okay.
I'm fully aware. I
Yeah.
work for a college.
Gotcha.
Let's say I know how unions work now.
Yeah.
But going back to the college where you said like I don't know how much more respected they are because like, and no offense, like not trying to knock you. So like in elementary school, they're like, we're teaching you for middle school, so you can be prepared because the teachers are going to be meaner there. Then you go through 3 years of middle school, and it's like, we're preparing you for high school where the teachers aren't going to take your crap. You get to high school, we're preparing you for college. You think the college professors are going to let this slide? You go to college and the teacher's
Nobody
like,
gives a shit.
I have a headache, I'm not coming in, y'all pass the class.
So,
or like,
no,
I'm going to take this bottle of NyQuil because I don't feel good, and when we start seeing rainbows, you guys I'm going to stop.
I actually agree with what you're saying because I've heard that a lot of times. So it varies from teacher to teacher.
Your
but,
expression.
but the reality is that they at the college level, you're teaching adults. It's
Yeah.
their responsibility to show up
True.
Yep.
and do the work, not
And
the
see,
teacher.
That is what they need to be teaching in high school.
Yeah.
Not like you just do whatever they say. No, it's you need to learn how to do this. You need to be
Yes.
self-sufficient.
Did you know that there are schools that teach kids how to study? I didn't know that was a skill that could be taught, you guys. I thought that was something you either naturally knew how to do or you were smart. End of story.
It's because of the younger generations. They're just.
They
But-
can't
but-
even fucking study,
know-
really? They need to learn how to study?
I'm gonna.
How we studied for tests in the Christian school was you got this paper, every line was missing one word, and what you'd have to do is listen to the teacher, write the word down in there, and then memorize all of that because those were the questions.
bullshit?
Yeah, those were the questions that were going to be on the test.
That's not how
So-
we... So,
Right.
I do agree with what you said, though, because I really don't know how to study. That's part of the reason why I never studied. But at the same time, I was very good at paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the way we learned is the teacher would go on a rant, and you had to write it down.
Yes. Okay, and
Right.
this
The
is...
entire fucking...
Yes.
So, and the worst part is you had to write it quickly because if
Yep.
they were writing on the board's not that big.
Yep.
So they would literally erase it on you. And so you had to fucking... So I got really good at cursive. However, my handwriting's really horrible.
You kind of have
So-
to make your own shorthand at some point.
Well, no, my
He
handwriting...
can't read what he writes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I would get home, and then it's like, I don't know what it
So
says here.
you have no
Yeah.
how many times when we worked together that he would write something. He's like, "What does that say?" And I'm trying to decipher his handwriting, and it was I got to the point where I got very good at reading his handwriting, and I could be like, "This is what it says." He's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yes, trust me
Yes.
on this
Yeah,
one."
you could be a doctor.
I could be a doctor.
But so that's how we learned with the little things. And then when I went to an actual high school, I went to a high school as a senior, never having learned how to study. And for me, when I got into those classes, it was 100% natural. Where I was like, "Oh, you just want me to write down what you say, and I need to remember it? Oh, I can do that." But I mean, think about how many kids who, if you were taught the way I was taught, and then just got thrown into this world where it's like, "No, you need to be self-sufficient." How do I do that? You know?
Well, and honestly, that was the big thing is studying was basically just knowing what you should write down and what you shouldn't write down.
And I learned that really quickly within the first, because I was like, well, I can't obviously write everything down because that's insane. You need to figure out what are the key facts and make sure you remember those.
So when I got to college, I kind of did the same thing. I just paid really good attention in class and never studied. But I had one class which was law. I don't know if you've ever attempted to study
No,
law.
I don't think I'll ever want to either.
Thankfully, I've only studied it in chapters.
It is horrifyingly boring.
Yes.
So I couldn't, my attention span would get to a certain point, it would get overloaded, and then I couldn't cope. So I started recording the class. I would just record it. And then at home, I would play it back and listen to bits and read the book and do whatever I needed. But what I found is, so I was recording it, so I had to really pay attention. So I started playing Sudoku.
And then you could pay attention.
And then I could actually understand what the fuck he was saying. Like, all of a sudden, I have more attention span. It made no sense.
Maybe you just have ADHD.
What I
Who knows?
really hated in school was my psychology teacher. He would say, well, this was all the teachers, but he was the worst about it. He would say, "Okay, you need to memorize this because it's gonna be on the test. Take all your notes, study your notes, all the stuff in this packet's gonna be on the test." It never was.
Yes.
I would spend hours studying this, get to the test, never mention what was in the packets, and now I'm just like failed the test because what I spent hours studying on was never mentioned in the test. And some teachers would be like, "Yeah, this will be on the test," and like a couple bits and pieces would be on there, and then the rest was like not. But at least they were honest about it.
Right.
Yeah, I've just decided doing study guides and stuff for exams is a waste of time because students are going to complain about them anyway.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
you know
for the most
what?
part.
I'd rather you fail the exam on your own accord. No, just kidding.
I hate you.
No.
So, wrapping up, education. Why is it important? What are we doing wrong with it? What's your
So
opinion?
I would say America needs to take a long, hard look at their education and the way they organize it, and we have to overhaul it. You guys got to get over the fact we are not number one in education at all.
Not even on the list.
And we need to find out who's number one and start copying them. That's Megan's 2 cents.
I would just say that we need a lot more individuality. Like, you need to be able to, like, actually have one-on-one time with kids who need one-on-one time. And we need to be able to identify that and have that happen, which means we need more funding for these things. Even if we want to overhaul the system, like she says, we need more funding going to that. Not going to, you know, like, yeah, this
War
is
on
good.
drugs.
Yeah, this is, yeah, oh my God, yes. How many things can we fix without that? So finances is my biggest thing.
I'm gonna agree with Megan on this one. If I remember correctly, last time I checked, we were 27th in education, and it's not even a good education. So we need to focus on the fact that we need to step up our game. We need to make sure that the underprivileged schools are getting what they need, and we need to make sure that it is not a singular tunnel vision approach, that it needs to be worked on and improved upon, so we can be smarter as a nation, because as it stands in 2020 and even back in 2016, there are way too many stupid people, and it's just not good.
You know what doesn't help with it? Defunding it, though. Just saying.
Oh,
True. I pretty much what you guys said. The one thing I would add is, for the longest time, people have been intentionally kept stupid, for lack of a better way of putting it, and that can only hurt us.
Yes.
There is no benefit. The whole idea of crushing people and keeping them in place just so that you can be higher up is just terrible. Calm down. It's if you raise up people, but in turn everybody else will get, elevated with.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
you cannot, the whole thing about keeping people down so that you can be more successful isn't real. If the other person's more successful, you can thrive even
Yeah.
better.
Less
So-
losers is always better.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's how you society.